Okay, I just walked in.
The regular meeting of the Board of Education for the San Francisco Unified School District for May 27th, 2025 is now called to order at 5:02 p.m. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Alexander?
Here.
Commissioner Fisher?
Here.
Commissioner Gupta? Commissioner
Here.
Hewling. Commissioner Ray?
Here.
Commissioner Wiseman Ward?
Here.
President Kim?
Here.
That's 6.
Accessibility information, translation, and interpretation services, and virtual meeting information can be found online at our items A1 or A2, 3, and 4. SFUSD will provide childcare for regular board meetings and monitoring meetings on the first floor of the Enrollment Center at 555 Franklin Street from 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. or the close of the meeting, whichever comes first. Childcare is for families who will be attending the regular and monitoring board meetings. Space is limited and will be provided on a first-come, first-served basis for children ages 3 to 10. If you have any questions, please contact the board office at 415-241-6427 or boardoffice@sfusd.edu. At this time, the board goes into closed session. I call for any speakers to the closed session items listed on the agenda. There will be a total of 5 minutes for speakers. Are there any speakers for public comment?
There are none tonight.
I now recess this meeting at 5:03 p.m. Phone number and here through the Google numbers that they post. So I believe we're going to just go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Item C, open session. The board will now vote on student expulsion matters that were heard in closed session. On item C1, I move for the approval of the stipulated expulsion agreement for one middle school student, matter number 2024-2025-27 for the remainder of the current spring 2025 and fall 2025 semesters, with suspended expulsion status for the fall 2025 semester. During the suspended expulsion period, the student will attend Civic Center. Can we have a second, please?
Second.
Roll call, please, Mr. Steele.
Ms. Letnoff will be doing our roll call this evening.
Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta?
Yes.
Commissioner Howling, sorry. I will get it by the end.
Hewling.
Hewling. I will. Yes? Okay. Commissioner Ray?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman Ward?
Yes.
President Kim?
Yes.
That's 7 ayes.
I move approval of the stipulated expulsion agreement for one high school student, matter number 2024-2025-28 for the remainder of this current spring 2025 and fall 2025 semesters commencing the day immediately following the expulsion order, with suspended expulsion status for the fall 2025 semester. During spring 2025, the student will attend Civic Center Secondary. Can I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta?
Yes.
Commissioner Hewling?
Yes.
Commissioner Ray?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman Ward?
Yes.
And President Kim?
Yes.
7 ayes.
I move approval of the stipulated expulsion agreement for one middle school student, matter number 2024-2025-29 for the remainder of the current spring 2025 and fall 2025 semesters, with suspended expulsion status for the fall 2025 semester. During the expulsion enforcement period, the student will attend San Francisco Middle School. Can I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta?
Yes.
Commissioner Hewling?
Yes.
Commissioner Ray?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman Ward?
Yes.
President Kim?
Yes.
7 ayes.
In 3 matters of anticipated litigation, the board, by a vote of 6 ayes, gives direction to the General Counsel. In the matter of student LP versus SFUSD OAH case number 2025-020577, the board, by a vote of 7 ayes, gives direction to the General Counsel. In the matter of student LES versus SFUSD OAH case number 2025-020329, the board, by a vote of 7 ayes, gives direction to the General Counsel. In the matter of student RS versus SFUSD OAH case number 2025-030060, the board, by a vote of 7 ayes, gives direction to the General Counsel. In the matter of student JG versus SFUSD OAH case number 2025-020037, the board, by a vote of 7 ayes, gives direction to the General Counsel. In the matter of University of San Francisco versus SFUSD, San Francisco County Superior Court case CGC-22-597932, the board, by a vote of 7 ayes, gives direction to the General Counsel. In the matter of Flente et al. Versus SFUSD, San Francisco Superior Court case number CPF-23-517987. The board, by a vote of 6 ayes, gives direction to the general counsel. Moving on to item D, retiree appreciations. I call on the superintendent Sue to honor our retirees.
Thank you, President Kim. I would just like to take a moment tonight to recognize and express our deepest gratitude to our incredibly special group of individuals, our SFUSD staff members who are retiring this year. These are educators, support staff, administrators, and operation team members who have dedicated their careers to serving our students and families in San Francisco. Their contributions have gone far beyond their job description. They have uplifted, mentored, and nurtured countless young people throughout our schools and in our neighborhoods. Each retiree has played a unique and essential role in creating learning environments where students felt safe, challenged, and seen. Whether they were teaching in classrooms, preparing meals, managing school offices, maintaining our facilities, or supporting district operations, their daily efforts have made a lasting impact. This work takes heart. It takes endurance, adaptability, and a deep sense of purpose, especially in recent years, as we've faced profound challenges and changes. And through all of this, our colleagues have shown resilience, leadership, and care. And I want to express my greatest appreciation for all of our retirees. And directly to our retirees, we honor your service and your legacy. You leave behind not only a record of professional dedication, but a lasting imprint on this district's future. You have helped build the foundation for others to stand on your shoulders. And so on behalf of SFUSD, I want to thank all of our retirees for their endless years of dedication to our district and wish you lots of health, joy, and hopefully having a wonderful time in the next chapter of your life. So congratulations to all of our retirees, and thank you again for all of your dedication. Thank you. I also want to recognize that today is going to be the last meeting for our student delegates. Yeah, boo. Both of our delegates have spent many hours with us leading both our Student Advisory Council, as well as, quite frankly, demonstrating how true leadership should look like. You have consistently asked the tough questions, have never shied away from taking on the rightful fight to support our students and making sure that you represent the true voice and the true heart of our students. And so you have demonstrated not only an ability to sit here among all of us and, quite frankly, model for us at times how to behave, but also have set a wonderful example for all of your peers. And I'm just so grateful for your leadership in holding me and my staff, our staff accountable, but really, truly demonstrating just your heart and your dedication to all the students at SFUSD. So thank you so much. With that, we do have very small token of appreciation for both of you that Judson can bring over.
So Isabel, do you mind if I say where you're going to college? Okay, great. So Isabel will be attending Boston College. So we got her and Langston will be with us another year. So he's not going to college just yet. He's a junior. So you can have one of our official district hoodies. Yeah, buddy. Right.
On behalf of the board, student delegates, just thank you so much for your time, your dedication, and as Dr. Seuss stated, for really serving as a model for the board and for your peers. So lots of gratitude and thank you so much. And we still have you until 8 o'clock, so. Yeah. 9 o'clock. Oh, an extra hour, 9 o'clock.
Oh, you
Yeah.
get early
Yeah.
on the last day.
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you so much. Moving to item D2, fiscal and operational health update. I also just want to acknowledge, I think typically we do public comment before discussion items. And so I know we're kind of jumping around a bit here, but we'll, just because it's agendized as a D2 fiscal and operational health update, we'll do that. Then we'll engage in public comment. We'll still save an hour for public comment, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, President Kim. To the dais, we have Marin Trujillo, our Chief of Staff, Melly Lau Smith, our extraordinaire operations and budget leader, as well as our Associate Superintendent of HR, Amy Baer. We want to provide an update on our fiscal and operation health, particularly regarding the status of the frontline transition, as well as the status of our budget within the frontline transition, and then HR. So I'm going to hand it over to the team. Thanks.
Good evening, President Kim, Vice President Hewling, Commissioners, Dr. Sue. So tonight we're providing a second update on the implementation of Frontline and Red Rover. Our focus continues on getting this right, not fast. So you're going to hear more about how we're doing that today. I was just telling Melly, a new phrase that I'm using from now till the end of this is every hour equals a day at this point, right? So a lot of things are happening very fast, and you'll see evidence of this because we updated the PowerPoint as of Friday with some changes. So every hour equals a day at this point. And the next 2 weeks are extremely critical. Next slide. So, but before, again, a lot of the work and some of the efforts that have happened over the weekend happened by the group that is listed here and the team that they support. So big thank yous to our business services team, our HR team, and all the people that work there who worked throughout the weekend, this weekend, getting a lot of stuff done. So thank you to them. Next slide. Again, Frontline is our ERP, Red Rover is our HCM, but this is not just a modernization of an ERP system. This is an integral part of our fiscal stabilization plan. This sets the foundation for how we reset our operational excellence in the district as part of that component. So it's bigger than just moving to a new system. Next slide, please. So again, thanks to the HR team. Oh, she stole my thunder. I was going to show you that we were trending orange on the second gauge there, but now we're trending green. A big thank you to the HR team who worked countless hours. I saw it midnight on Sunday. People were approving HRAs. Central office training is complete. We have about 400, give or take, HRAs pending review that need to get done by this Friday, and I'm confident saying that they will get done, thanks to that team that I just mentioned. But again, this is an example of some of the gauges that we have, how things are trending, moving forward to green. Not all, but everyone, we take every win at this point. Next slide. On the Red Rover, again, the second gauge there was red or orange. Now it's green. We still have a lot of work to do by the end of this Friday. The team continues to prioritize the Red Rover integration. And like I said, the next 2 weeks are extremely critical. Next, I'm going to have Melly Smith talk about budget.
Thank you, Marin. Good evening, Commissioners. As Marin said, the budget trainings have been completed for the central office. And while we are delayed on the original timeline that we had set, we're still on track for the board review and approval of the 25-26 budget before July 1. School sites are pretty much completed with their budgets, and central office is in the next coming up with all of the work that thank you to Amy's team and everybody on the HRAs. That means that the budget analysts can start looking at budgets and balancing them and having us sort of address all the unresolved issues this week and next week. And Anne Marie and I will be back on June 17th for the first reading of the FY fiscal year 25-26 budget.
Next slide. So what's happening this week? We continue with our pay compares. At the beginning, if you recall, we did a small sample of 1,800. Now we engage with all employees this Thursday and Friday. We're running pay compares of all certificated, all monthly employees, and all biweekly employees. What happens after a pay compare? It sort of shows up everything that is still pending. If the data doesn't match, there's 3 reasons for why it doesn't match. Either the check doesn't match in Empower and Frontline because Frontline does a better job of calculating the outcome, and that's why it's different but not wrong. 2, the data doesn't match. The data has not been moved from Empowered into Frontline. And 3, there's a configuration issue within Frontline that we need to fix. That is what the pay compares will do every time we run them, with the end goal that we get to a close threshold of 95% plus error-free, right? So if you want to know more, checks, and Nelly has been really strong in this. If we don't have the checks ready, we can't pay people. So turns out getting checks printed and ready for a new system is very tricky. They're underway. They're being reviewed and approved by the banks, and every half centimeter counts in how you set up a check. So that's why you see this here. It's one of the things that I did not expect to be such a big deal, but it is. We need a check, an actual paper check that we can print. Next slide. Here as well, there is improvement in our CFIRS configuration. As you know, we have a workaround that we've been using, a manual workaround for the integration between us and our retirement and health system. Moving forward, through Frontline, this will be done through a systems integration. We are trending orange here, or red, yellow, but you can see that on the CFIRS interface, we've completed the testing and we're at 75%. So that's also some good progress. And next slide, please. So here, just want to highlight that as we keep doing the systems process and understanding how things get done in SFUSD, we finally found the right secret sauce, if you will, for how we consult with our frontline individuals and frontline staff, understand their business requirements, then develop an end-to-end process, then pressure test it with the team, and then ultimately do the training and configuration. Sounds like we should have done it from the beginning that way. We were doing it in a different way, but this way works better, and we're underway. There's about, I would say, 15 more of those type of trainings and sessions pending to finish configurations. Next slide. And this talks about some of the upcoming trainings that we have. As you can see, in order to ensure that everyone gets trained on what they need to get trained for Go Live. And you can see we completed that. You can see the upcoming training, some extend all the way to August. Some need to happen before we go live so that people know how to navigate the system. And that concludes the presentation, Dr. Su.
Thank you very much. And commissioners, I'll open up for questions. Commissioner.
I would just like to second all the thanks. We talk in special education world about this being the 100 days of May for IEP season, but I think it's the 1,000 days of May for all of you. So thank you so much. My 2 questions are back on the payroll and pay compare slide. The first bullet point about pay compares, you state identified issues have been documented and resolved. I just want to make sure part of our issue with Empower and Infosys were tickets were being documented and resolved, but the root causes were not. And so when you say here that you're talking about the issues, the root causes have been identified and addressed, not just we're not running
That's-
into another.
That's correct.
Infosys.
So a good example would be my check is different, and it's because the way I'm being taxed in Empower was slightly wrong, perhaps, but in Frontline is being corrected. So root cause, Frontline works better than Empower. Another one could be that my add-on that's attributed to me for a particular job class, somehow in Frontline it wasn't configured. So those are the things we're correcting the root causes so that we don't get to hopefully get tickets, right?
Amazing, thank you. Then my last question is on the interfaces and systems customization slides.
Mhm.
Just the retirement systems bullets there. We have a huge number of retirees this year because of the SERP. These issues are not going to impact our retiring amazing team members, are they?
Well, we have a workaround that's not great, that we've been using a manual workaround. This slide talks about our future state where we won't need to do that, right? So I'm optimistic that in our current way that we're talking to the city, these issues are being resolved. But the reason why we need a configuration is to avoid that human error. It needs to be done this way. And it's a complicated connection, but we're getting there. And this will be the first time. I don't know if we had it before in PeopleSoft, but since SAP has been turned on, this has been done manually.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. I had a question about the early warning indicators, at least like on, let's say, the frontline priority tasks. For the first indicator, it says EWI draft budget not ready by 5/21. Is that saying that we were not ready by 5/21, or the warning indicator was that? And
The warning indicator is, we want it to be that would be yes, you said it correct. The warning indicator is we should have had this done by 5/21. We didn't make that deadline, so we then,
I see. So all the EWIs that we see here are the realities, not milestones.
Oh, President Kim, we might have mixed some realities with milestones. I apologize. That's a
Okay.
good catch. In the spirit of giving you updated information, we might have provided an update versus the milestone. I'm happy to provide
see.
an
Okay.
updated slide deck with the correct milestones. and
Okay,
not that.
so just,
Yeah.
because I'm reading this, and so
I apologize.
I see on 5/28, so tomorrow, budget development is due. And the early warning indicator was that the draft budget would not be ready by 5/21. So that
Yeah.
tells me that, what, we were not ready by 5/21, but we still anticipate.
I think this is a mix of process
okay.
update, so I apologize.
Okay.
We wanted the budget to be ready last Friday, and it wasn't because we needed to complete the HRAs.
I
Now
see.
we're saying by this Friday, it needs to be done.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see, okay.
Yeah, sorry, this
No,
was in the
that's-
spirit of
it's
updating.
helpful-
yeah.
It's helpful
Mhm.
to know. And then there's a lot going on right now with hiring simultaneously for next year as well. I'm curious how much of our hiring for next year is actively taking place right now in Red Rover versus something that we're gearing up towards?
So a large part of our hiring has been recalling temporary employees that were released earlier in the year and that are currently still working in our district. We are not requiring them to reapply and go through Red Rover. So those hires will be outside of the Red Rover system.
Okay, and then just in terms of the end user training, so what I'm seeing here is that AP clerks have not yet been trained on Frontline and Red Rover yet. Is that right?
That's correct. So with the frontline system, we're shifting from, in the current system, which is called GoFast, we have a system where the person who submits requisitions and stuff, we call that the site clerk, also submits payments on those requisitions. And that work has been split because from audit findings and internal tracking, it's much better to have a different person submitting requisitions to purchase things and another person submitting the invoices. So the AP stands for accounts payable, not assistant principals or AP courses, because we have to come up with a new one. So all of the site clerks have been trained, and the next training is for the accounts payable clerk. So we are on track, but that's why it seems a little bit.
For all of the trainings that have been completed thus far, is the assumption here that everyone was in attendance and all the training was done? And
The assumption is that we will have to do some redos and re-lessons for some because it is change. And on top of that, our team got better at the trainings as time went on. So it's possible that at the first training, it wasn't the best and people are catching up. We also had a lot of problems at times identifying the true source of the list of who needed to be trained for something. So that took a minute. So even today with Dr. Sue, someone was brought to my attention. We're reaching out to them to find out if they need a retraining or not. So, but in general, we believe that enough critical mass has been trained to be ready for the go live, for the elements that need to be activated at go live.
Okay. And my last question, I guess, related to that is, so I'm just recalling back when Empower was first being implemented and staff got overwhelmed because there just all of a sudden became thousands of requests because it didn't go live in the way it was anticipated. What is there a contingency plan right now once the go live happens?
Yes.
And what is that process?
Yes, there is a contingency, there has to be, right? So we'll use Zendesk as well. Should there be issues with payroll, we have a much streamlined process to correct people's check correctly this time, not using AP checks or like vendor checks where taxes were not being calculated. That's being identified. There will be a sort of triage team with different representatives from budget, payroll, et cetera. Unfortunately, we've done this before, so there's a lot of lessons learned on how to do that. Now, all the work, as I said earlier, is to do this right, not fast, so that we don't have such an issue. However, as I understand, in any ERP implementation, there will be someone whose check was wrong. So now we have the ability to provide accurate checks within a day. Whereas if you recall before, that wasn't always possible.
Can I add one thing to that? Also, just to add on to what Marin was saying, both the HR team and the payroll team have embedded case management teams. So we can take walk-ins, we can take phone calls, we can take tickets. Like we have teams in each department ready to solve people's problems.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I just have one comment and a few, two quick questions. First thing is I had submitted some questions and I'm hoping that those can be posted. The answers can be posted online along with the other Q&A since this document was uploaded later. So I got the answers, but I want to make sure that other folks can see them publicly. Okay, terrific. Second thing I wanted to check on is what is your level of confidence at this point that we will be able to go live by July 1st? And what are the challenges you're encountering? Then I have a final question about principals, but I can hold that for a minute.
I'm very stressed. My level of confidence, I'm going to frame it as optimistic. Like I said, every hour is a day, so things are changing. These next 2 weeks are critical. If we lose momentum in any way, we could derail. We're not there yet. So I'm optimistic with open eyes, right? So if things don't go well, we need to go back to, I don't want to talk about it, but we will have to talk about what that looks like. I would say by this Friday, June 6th, that will be a critical point for us. And a lot of things have to align correctly for that to be the case. And at this moment, Commissioner Ray, I believe they're heading that way. Is it perfect? It is not. The pain that we'll suffer by not going live at this time, I would say is worse than any of the issues of the imperfect rollout. Well, again, we're working really hard so that it's not imperfect. I don't want to confuse that, but it's not easy. The alternative is not easier. It's actually harder. So I think the team is committed to trying to go live on July 1. And so I remain cautiously optimistic. I hope that answers. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, thank you. And my last question relates to the experience and essentially how things are being handled with principals, with site leaders. So I've heard from some folks that it took them a fair amount of time or what they consider to be a fair amount of time to learn how to use this system and to do initial work with it. How much will they need to do? How much will they need to interact with this system? And is this work that can be done by other folks more efficiently? Or is it, in fact, the best thing for principals to handle it? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there was a great idea of using all the functionality within Frontline to have principals have as much control in developing their budgets. It comes at a cost, right? The more control, the more you have to know. I would say, and I think we've been talking about this briefly, that next year's budget development will look different. it will create a different type of support needed at the central office, I suspect, so that a principal can sit next to an analyst and do their budget. The functionality of, if you remember, of Frontline was contributed to the frustration. That's why they were here, and in a way, we benefited financially because they didn't charge us for an integration because of that. The system works, the process works. It is, it's a way of doing budget development. Are there better ways? I think we've learned some things from here that we should take away and do differently. I would also personally say there's some things that we did that are a good thing that we did them that way. So it's a balancing act of that. And I mean, I don't know, Mel, if you have some thoughts on budget development for next year.
No, I think you're accurate. I think we've learned a lot, and I think there's different ways we would think about the previous system of how we did budgets and merging it with the Frontline. Having been one of those people who has learned a lot about Frontline in the last 2 weeks, I think it will be smoother next year with what we've learned.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to follow up on a comment that was made in the presentation and help understand it better. I'm so glad that you're doing all of the simulations now and comparing and getting to the root causes of what any discrepancies are. You said that the goal is 95% accuracy, and I wanted to know if that is consistent with the level of inaccuracies you would find in a mature, established payroll system, or if how that compares to the level of inaccuracy we have historically seen with Empower, and if that is an acceptable discrepancy level.
You know, I'm at a disadvantage and I don't have Kathy Hopkins and Dr. Clark here. I think I misspoke. 95% is, don't know why I said 95%. It's actually that we have different criteria for different elements. For example, what is the variance between one check versus another for an employee? We landed on $1. So there isn't a overall percentage, if you will. We have different variance tolerance for each element. So what I'm happy to do is put that in writing and present it in more detail to show you the criteria for what it qualifies as good enough, standard best practice. We decided that $1 was enough of a variance. Going below $1 was unreachable, and it doesn't seem to align. And then we have different ones for retirement, speed. So there's different criteria for what qualifies a functioning payroll system. Sorry about that, Commissioner, but yeah, I shouldn't have said 95. So, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I also just wanted to better understand it with the number of samples that you've compared. It looks like there's the 1,800 employees. Do we have an estimate of, like, right now, out of those 1,800 employees, how many employees had a variance that was an inaccuracy in Frontline as opposed to a former an inaccuracy in the former Empower system?
Yeah, I don't have the data right now. What I can tell you is that there were three categories. It's different, but it's not wrong. So being Frontline calculated, I don't know what the right word, correctly, more correct than Empower. 2, the configuration was not set up correctly in Frontline, so we needed to fix that. And 3, the way in which Empower calculates, the data was missing, so that's why. So all of those were corrected. In general, the theme was that payroll is calculated correctly in Frontline, better than Empower.
Could we, could the board get the actual numbers of the percentage of the sample that was, at least in categories 2 and 3? It sounds like category 1 is a good thing and an improvement, if I'm understanding correctly.
It's an improvement, and it will bring up questions, right? So one of the biggest things that potentially we'll have to get ready for is employees believing that their check is wrong because it was calculated a certain way in Empower, but in Frontline it will be calculated correctly. And so that's not wrong. It's different, but not, that's why I'm using different, but not wrong. But I'm happy to show you the criteria, and I can provide that to the board.
So VP Hewling, once the team is done with all 9,000 pay compares, maybe we can give you the bigger picture of where we are with the accuracy piece.
Yeah, I'd love both, just so we can see the rate of improvement,
Yeah.
things like that.
But we should be done with the 9,000 by this week or next week?
We'll be done on Friday with with the running the pay compares, and by Tuesday we should be done, give or take. Don't quote me on that because I don't have Dr. Clark here with me, and Kathy, she's home ill right now. So, but yes, happy to provide. I need to see that as well, right? To know that we're making a progress. So, you guys are all becoming really good frontline experts.
Thank you all so much, especially for, I'm sure, working really hard over the holiday weekend. So we really appreciate all of your service.
Any other, oh, go for it. Commissioner Sander?
Yeah, just echoing the gratitude of my colleagues, and one request or suggestion would be, I really appreciated the comments around having, I forget how you put it, open door office hours or something for problems afterwards. It'd be really good as we get closer to go live to get that kind of reported back to the board and being really public, because as you pointed out, Mr. Trujillo, like there's going to be some errors, right? We're not going to be at 100%, and that's okay. But what we need to do is have a way to deal with the mistakes when they come in, so that we don't have sleepovers happening, as an example.
Just heard it happen in my office. So that's
an example.
Yeah.
But I think that, it's clear you're already thinking about it, but it would be great to just know that, so we can help publicize those things too, if issues come to the board, so that we're all kind of ready to say, okay, if there's a mistake, here's where you go, this is where someone's going to respond to it, that kind of thing.
So socializing our contingency plan.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, and offering to help with that. As a board member, I think, because people sometimes come to us with the complaints, they don't always come to us with the compliments, but
Right.
so that
Right.
we can help in that process if we know where to send people.
Okay.
So thank you.
No, happy to do that. Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
Echoing gratitude, I know any kind of transition is not easy, especially when you're moving from a system that was never really fixed. So I really appreciate all of your hard work. So for clarification, as I understand, is the go or no go by this Friday or the following Friday?
Should we need to have that conversation, Commissioner Gupta, it will be by June 6th,
June
area,
6th,
give or
okay.
take, right?
Got it. Okay.
If you don't hear from me, that's a good thing.
Got it.
Mhm.
Got it. That's super helpful. And I
Yeah.
think to Vice President Hewling's point, being able to get the data in advance of that so
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
we can, so we understand what that means or doesn't mean would be really helpful. And then are we anticipating having to continue and pay for Empower for any longer period than anticipated? Or is that also what will be determined on that go, no-go date of June 6th?
Well, in order to be ready for that, we have to start thinking about it now, right? So we have contracts and licensing agreements with, as you saw in the first slide deck, the first time, that Cobalt system, none of that is free. So we have enough. We've always assumed that we needed access to the system a few months after. For the most part, not for the most part, that has all been contracted, and our contracts end at different times for different things. If we need to extend the use, then yes, there is a fiscal impact to extend some of the use of, I believe, Perky might be one of them at this point. I don't have it in front of me, but yes. And those things, I've costed them out, and I believe it's an additional $2 million than what I projected to use for the current ERP implementation. Again, I hope we don't have to talk about that, but we've thought about it.
That's helpful to understand. And the last question I had was, I also recognize the challenge and complexity of this, as we roll over July 1st, as well as all of the different human resource transitions that are happening at that time as well. And I'm curious, as you think about this, I know one of the things that commissioners have heard, or, those of us that were campaigning over the last year have heard, was the lack of resources. So I'm thrilled to hear that there will be support staff that can help with that. And I just want to understand a little bit more around with transitions of staff in and out of the school district. Is that impacting the level of support that will be available, people who understand the systems and that will be able to provide that support as people come and go with the school district?
Yeah. It's a really good question, Commissioner Gupta. I would say the bottom line is yes, we're losing historical knowledge for sure. But we know that right now. I know in the budget office, they had to reorganize. In HR, we have case management. Payroll has a case management team of temporary staff. It is so far from, I don't know, I'll defer to Amy on HR, but on the payroll side, I think we're fine, even though some people are leaving. The current team is robust enough and has the knowledge to triage and mitigate if there's as Commissioner Alexander was bringing up, if there's a payroll issue. On the technology side, we're lucky to have Eddie No as our interim. He's thought about this more than I have, and I believe, not to speak for him directly, but I believe he feels confident that we have a team and we have a plan to replace some of those gaps and mitigate that. But it's not going to be easy, so there's an impact. Yeah.
I will add, we have an onboarding plan for some temporary staff coverage for the HR department, and I believe for business as well. The same people that are trying to process the HRAs are the same people that are hiring staff for next year. And many of them are the same people that went through the failed Empower implementation and have sort of a collective PTSD from that experience. So, I think knowing that people have lives and health issues and family issues that they also have to take care of, we are planning to bring on some temporary employees just to have sort of a safety net in case, we can't afford for people or for those functions not to be done right now. So.
Thank you all again. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate the update, and we are excited to learn more as you all continue on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, before we enter into public comment, I'll say my spiel. The SFUC Board of Education follows a student outcomes-focused governance model based on community input. The board has adopted our vision, values, goals, and guardrails. In order to increase the portion of board meeting time we spend on student outcomes, every other regular meeting is a monitoring workshop. This model also calls on the board to empower the superintendent to take full ownership of the strategies used to reach those goals within the guardrails set by the board. As we implement this new governance framework, the board will continue to adopt new systems, routines, and policies that improve student outcomes. We encourage the public to follow this work on our website at sfusd.edu/governance as we commit to finding new and improved ways to more meaningfully engage with staff, students, and family. Item E, public comment. To align with our effective governance model, public comment will last for 1 hour, so 8:30. We aim to respect staff, family, and community time by beginning board business no later than 8 p.m. Oh, that's gone. Our hope is to conduct board business in an efficient, effective, and accessible manner during reasonable hours. Each participant may speak up to 1 minute. Staff will thank the participant at the 1 minute mark. At 1 minute and 5 seconds, I've asked Mr. Steele and Ms. Barrios to please turn off the mic and transition to the next speaker. I ask members of the public to please respect that 1 minute limit so that we can hear from as many speakers as possible. I encourage speakers who are speaking on the same topic to collaborate and combine their comments so the board can hear all viewpoints during our limited time. Please also note that the board accepts written public comment via email at boardoffice@sfusd.edu. We'll first hear from students in person on agenda items, then general public in person on agenda items, followed by students and then the general public on non-agenda items. Regardless of whether in-person public comment is complete, we will save 15 minutes for remote public comment at the end, taking commenters in the same order as in person. If any time remains, we will then return to in-person public comment. As a reminder, board rules and California law do not allow us to respond to comments or attempt to answer questions during the public comment time. If appropriate, the superintendent will ask that staff follow up with speakers. Oh, so sorry. Yes, today we have Ms. Lenoff, not yeah.
Yes, thank you. I didn't receive any student speakers. Are there any students who care to speak? All right, we'll start with agenda. John Varga and Fred, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing Sui. You can come to the podium. You have 1 minute each.
Well, thank you. Good evening. My name is John Varga, and it's my privilege to speak to you on behalf of the dedicated members of the IFPTE Local 21 ProTech Bargaining Unit. Recently, layoff notices were sent to members in both central office and at school sites. These layoffs will have immediate and lasting negative impacts on the district. For example, these layoffs mean several high schools will no longer have someone on site to address tech failures directly impacting instruction. Fewer people will be managing the attendance databases, which directly impacts the district's state budget allocations. And despite requests, the district has not provided an explanation as to how it will make up for the loss of these positions doing essential work. Surely the elimination of the work or the reassignment to already at capacity employees cannot be the answer that this board wants. And we both have the right to know the answer before the layoffs go through. Please do not let the district's financial burden fall on the employees whose work allows instruction to continue and keeps the lights on. The district has already shown it can address finances and still rescind layoff notices. Let's do that together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm speaking as one of those techs that received the layoff notice. I'm at Wallenberg High School, and I also heard that the 2 secretaries and an AP assistant principal, I guess, won't be returning as well. So they're expecting 1 secretary to do the jobs of 3 and also probably doing some of my job. One thing besides fixing the technology that's at a school is I'm there to also support the students with their Chromebooks. As we know, we have gone one-to-one. And so as teachers moving more and more and depending on the students to bring their Chromebooks, if a Chromebook is broken or lost, now they have no one to go to. Because I'm not sure who's going to do that job anymore with the other layoffs that are happening at the school site. So I just want to make sure that our jobs usually entail not just the technical side, but helping out and supporting our students.
Thank you. All right, we'll call the next group. We're on non-agenda items now. Jessica Agnos, Chanel Blackwell, Jeffrey Bang, Sarah Saldana, and Laura Kennedy. 1 minute each.
Good evening. I want to highlight positivity with the same gusto as I do concerns. So I'm here to thank you. SFUSD took a huge step towards giving Star King the stability that we've been asking for roughly a decade, and that is cause for celebration. There's still work to be done, though. We need CDE protections for community schools. As long as we have inequities as our site, we will have issues with enrollment. The Student Success Fund was established to address these inequities. Community schools coordinators are told, go into your community, do a hopes and needs assessment, get feedback, break down silos, and create a plan in community to move forward on a path that serves the whole child and allows everyone to flourish. It's a mindset, a way of being. It's an excellent approach, and both the city and state have allocated taxpayer funds to it. Now I'm asking you as a district to adopt that same mentality. Can we work in community to get SFUSD thriving? Star King is here for it. Thank you.
Hi, Chanel Blackwell. I'm a parent of a graduate, 2024 SFUSD graduate from Minnesota, and a 8th grader. Wow, he's graduating next week. Wow, from 8th grade. You know what? Much appreciated for the. I just want to say thank you. Much appreciated for the board about what the students with the IEPs and 504s will not. It won't be there'll no freeze on hiring teachers and paras for them. So thank you very much. And hopefully it stays, because we parents gonna like, what happened? You promised this. So I'm hoping that you'll stick to your promise. In addition, I just want to speak about the math placement policy for incoming 9th graders who did the 8th grade algebra, the pilot. And I just want to make sure, what is it? What's the plan? The ones who did it 2024 to 25. And we hope that you consider formalizing that. Thank you for being a service for San Francisco kids.
Good evening, board members, and just want to again. Oh, okay. like that? Oh, all right, okay. All right, good evening, board members. I just want to say thank you again from Star King, and for helping us to begin the first step of begun our stabilization, so the staff and teachers and parents, most important of all, knows that you do hear us, you do see us. We thank you for that. And I want to let you know that the Star King community remains solution focused, and that's what we're all about. We're focusing on solution when crisis is around because we're going forward. And also want to just call out to let you guys maybe put in your mind about thinking about growth. In times of crisis, there, even with all the hardship we're enduring, please remember that we are a large community, a unified district. All overall, we should think about how we can grow as a district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Saldana, the principal at Jean Parker Elementary, and I'm here to raise awareness that the state has severely reduced funding for YMCA after-school programs across the city and in our neighborhood. For working parents, after-school care is a basic need, and the threat of not having a spot is causing tremendous anxiety. For kids, limited staff means programs focus on ratios and supervision, not on homework support, positive relationships with adults, and enrichment. One after-school teacher position is $20,000. That's a drop in the bucket for some, and that is life-saving and life-changing for many, including those of us in schools who have lost multiple positions. So I'm asking for your help to use connections, resources, networks, to look into this, hopefully, and to help us find funds for impacted programs so we can assure incoming families have a spot in after-school care next year. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Kennedy. I'm a kindergarten parent at Yickwo Elementary and also on the SSC. Congratulations, student delegate Isabella, and to all of the SFUSD graduates in the class of 2025. This Friday, my son and 44 others will be graduating kindergarten at Yickwo Elementary. Of the 45 students graduating kindergarten, 7 of them have spent the entire school year without a dedicated classroom teacher. They've had substitute teachers going in and out, and miraculous and wonderful paraeducators really holding it all together along with school administrators. When I look at our current openings on the job board, the link is broken, just as an FYI. You have to kind of scroll through and find the 2025-26. So the posting for this year's position is already sort of called off. I'm just asking to really imagine being in the seat of those 7 children and to do everything you can to help fill that position. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes in-person public comment. We move on to Zoom. We're gonna do online public comment now. We'll start with students, and then we'll be followed by agenda items, non-agenda items. So if you're a student who cares to speak to anything tonight, please raise your hand. Can that be repeated in Spanish and Chinese, please?
Buenas noches para aquellas personas que deseen en este momento hacer su comentario público. Solamente van a ser estudiantes y cosas que tengan que ver con la agenda. Van a tener todos los participantes 1 minuto nada más. Gracias.
Thank you。大家好，而家係網上發表公眾意見嘅時段，你有1分鐘嘅時候，麻煩你如果係想發言嘅話，麻煩你喺網上舉手，多謝你。Thank you. Can you hear us still? Oh, Jason? No, you can.
The audio. Hello.
Ms. Marshall, are you there? I'm gonna unmute you. Speak if you can hear me, please.
Can you hear me?
Mrs. Still?
I can hear her here.
I can hear everyone. Should I speak? Yes. I can hear. Should I speak?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Marshall.
Okay.
We
All
were just testing. I'm gonna get you in just a moment. We're gonna start
Okay.
real quick, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Victoria, are you there?
Hello, this is Victoria Cardero.
Are you a student?
I am not.
Okay, we'll just move on to regular public comment now. Anyone who would care to speak, because there are no students with their hands raised. And Victoria, you can go ahead.
I can go ahead now.
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I am a resident of the 500 block of Vermont Street, and I wanted to raise my concerns about the decision to place a family shelter at downtown high school. I sent correspondence to the board detailing my concerns, but I wanted to raise them here because first and foremost, I'm deeply concerned about the lack of communication and transparency with how this issue was handled. The timeline that we received is immediate. The communications and meetings suggest that the board's decision to place the shelter here has already been made. Though it's called a proposal, there's timelines for move-out dates from Horace Mann, move-in dates at downtown high school, very little notice for the community meeting, and only 1 week between the community meeting and your meeting today, which raises concerns to me and others that there is not interest in gathering feedback from the community and hearing our concerns.
Thank
As
you. That's
detailed in my
your time.
correspondence as well, Potrero Hill has faced a lot of
Thank
problems.
you,
We
Victoria. That's
have
your time.
a lot.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall, you can go ahead.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mr. Still. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the NAACP San Francisco branch, we have some great news to share. First, we want to thank the commissioners and Dr. Sue for no classified layoffs in the classified staff. There are many, many African-American women who work long hours and many years to support our students, so thank you. And last Monday night at St. Ignatius Church on the campus of USF, hundreds of African-American students in grades 3 to 12 who made the honor roll were honored for our African-American Honor Roll celebration. So thank you, thank you, thank you. The student smiles said it all. And there were 2 MCs. Langston was one of the MCs. He does an outstanding job, and Isabella does an outstanding job. And Deani, one of our graduates, was home from college, and she was the other student MC. And lastly, I think I only have 3 items to discuss. I think I've discussed all of them so far. So because we have to go so fast and it doesn't really make too much sense. But again, just words of appreciation for no classified layoffs. And thank you for our African American Honor Rolls. We shout out to Ali and APAC for a phenomenal job. Ms. Letitia Irvin and her staff for helping to support the NAACP. And
Thank you, Ms.
also
Marshall.
thank you, Langston, so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Parents for Public Schools.
Hi, good evening. This is Dr. Marrero calling in from PPS. I want to thank the board commissioners who are responding to community requests and emails related to what is happening in the school district, especially for next year. I really appreciate the work that is being done by the central office team, despite the issue related to SERPs. And folks may be feeling a little less motivated. I'm calling about the student focus model, governance model. I think that this, we're seeing that there is an issue with making sure that this is a cohesive approach. I'm concerned about resetting goals and lowering benchmarks for our students of color. And I really think a test for all mindset is not beneficial. I think we need to make sure we have other data indicators in these goals. Thank you.
Thank you. It's Lauk, L-O-U-K.
Good evening, it's Luke.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Luke. Go ahead.
No problem. Hi, I'm a 500 block of Vermont neighbor, and I want to make a comment about the proposed homeless shelter at downtown high school. I'm a longtime resident, 20 plus years. I have 2 young children, and we have concerns about the ability for this facility to serve as a homeless shelter. We've had numerous issues in the past with public health and with crime, and this issue has been forced very quickly on the community without ability to actually share any of our public opinion about the impact, not only on the residents of our neighborhood, but on both the students of downtown high school and the proposed homeless students who will be subjected to living in this community. It's not equipped for a homeless family shelter. We very much support the city and the agencies in finding solutions to help these families. We're very sympathetic to that. This is not a good location. It has not been well thought out, and we want to find a better solution and feel that there should be more thought put into decision making, especially with zoning. And we
Thank you, Dr.
understand that
Khan.
Horace Mann can continue to house these families before construction even begins or is approved by
Thank
plan.
you. Aaron?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Aaron?
Go ahead, Aaron. You're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Aaron, we can hear you.
Thank you. My name's Aaron. I'm a board member with Parents for Public Schools. And I have a question about if school closures are being brought back on the table, what will happen with paraeducators and special education resource teachers. If a school closes, will those positions move to other schools that are open? And I also just wanted to bring up that I noticed there's only one meeting in June, and for if the board is saying that they want to work on transparency, which is really wonderful and we highly respect that, it would be helpful to have more meetings available than just one in June and then a break in the summer. Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Hello, sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for those who attended for public comments. Moving on to item F, workshop on student outcomes. Item 1, 2025-26 interim goals and initiatives. Before I call on the superintendent to introduce this item, update for the board, we will be discussing the interim goals today. We are tabling the interim guardrails conversation, in part because we want to be able to hear from the superintendent on the district's major initiatives and be able to build interim guardrails that respond to the work. And so today we'll only be hearing about interim goals and not interim guardrails. Are there any questions about that before we move on? Okay, we anticipate those interim guardrails coming back to us in August, I believe. Great. Awesome. I'll pass it over to the superintendent.
Thank you, President Kim. I'm just going to pass it directly over to Dr. Khanna and Dr. Kim for their presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners, Superintendent Sue, and the members of the public. I have the honor of presenting on behalf of our cross-functional team this evening the updated interim goals for the 2025-26 school year. Since most of you have already had multiple opportunities to engage with the proposed interim goals through the board briefing sessions last week and the commissioner request for information process also last week, we'll be opting for a less is more approach this evening. So not directly presenting on a slide-by-slide basis. For our staff, students, families, and the broader members of the public, we encourage you to check out item I on the agenda that's posted online, where you can find the document that has the commissioner's questions and the staff's responses to them. I will provide some high-level summary and the broader context in place of a slide-by-slide slide presentation, and making more time available for us to engage in conversation and to answer any further clarifying questions that you all might have. I think President Kim actually just shared, I was going to say that we are setting aside the interim guardrails. Through this work, we have surfaced some contrasting approaches on how to productively work on the guardrails. So we hope to meet with Mr. AJ Crable and work with all of you to generate something that is more productive for the staff, the district, and for student outcomes. Okay, so I don't think we will be advancing slides, but I think we'll likely just stay on the slide number 2 for the rest of the talk. And as we might need to, we can jump to some specific ones. Okay, so now for some the summary overview. And I'll make 3 points in that regard. First, the overall approach of the interim goals is largely staying the same as the current school year. So goal 1 is almost verbatim, and you can see in the updated slide deck that's posted online that the approach and the groups and the language is staying largely the same. Goal 2 for middle grade math, the grade levels have been adjusted so that now the entire goal is a comprehensive middle grade goal, whereas before interim goal 2.1 was 3rd grade African American students. We have now adjusted the grade level so that interim goal 2.1 is 6th graders, interim goal 2.2 is 7th graders, and interim goal 2.3 is 8th graders. Goal 3, interim goal 3.1 has been slightly edited to make hopefully tracking a little bit simpler, and would be happy to talk about that. But interim goal 3.3 is entirely new. Second summary point is that we have not yet established numerical targets. As you can see from the magenta X's in the slide deck, we just completed the last window of the district assessment administration just last week. So we're still getting the results in and processing them. And also we are continuing to receive responses this week and next week from our teachers, site-based educators, on a survey that we have been running on a semesterly basis, and that also provides some additional data. So once we have these additional data coming in, that'll give us a sense of where we stand at the end of the year on various interim goals. And using the end of year numbers, we'll be able to set the targets for the next year. And lastly, for each interim goal, as you can see in the slide deck, we have identified corresponding initiative that seeks to drive the student outcomes forward. The initiatives represent the staff's current best thinking and may undergo some refinements as we wrap up the planning process for next year over the summer. So we welcome your feedback and comments. And along with the initiatives, we also have summarized the associated metrics, both for implementation and impact. We are currently continuing to strengthen our muscles for implementation data collection and reporting, and look forward to providing progress monitoring reports of consistently high quality next year by laying out these metrics ahead of time. We welcome your comments and questions and look forward to engaging in conversation.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the board for questions. Commissioner Ray.
Good evening. Thank you both for being here. And
for all of your work on doing the interim goals and guardrails. I submitted a number of questions, so there are answers. Thank you for providing those for the public to read and for us commissioners. There are a few questions that I want to ask, partially based on feedback I've gotten from the community and partially, also based on concerns that I had reading through the responses to the questions. So let me ask the simpler ones, or comparatively simpler ones first. My first point is a bit of a comment, and that is around the lack of percentages here. I understand based on your explanation that you are waiting for additional information to come in both from teachers and testing. But I have heard from the public that simply seeing these X's causes anxiety and concern. So I'm hoping that you could perhaps provide some information on when this will be coming out, when you'll be able to provide more, because when families see X's, they may not think that we really have our ducks in a row. And also, is there a way to use perhaps predictive analytics or something like that in order to, arrive at some estimated numbers and change them later update them later if need be? That's my first question. So do you want me to ask the other questions, or do you want to answer and then? Okay.
Thank you for the feedback. I will admit that it doesn't feel great to put the temporary placeholders in there. It's also coming out of, I think, our process improvement, because in the previous years, we have actually not had these interims ready until well into the summer and probably right before school year started, because that's how long some of the conversations have taken place. And we actually didn't start the planning process until the school year got out. So we are ahead of the schedule, the traditional schedule on that front. And that, of course, has come with the trade-off of not having the final numbers ready. We are hoping to have at least the initial targets for some initial consideration within the next couple of weeks, right? By middle of June-ish. I'm a little bit hesitant to put out initial estimates that are broadly shared, because I think that typically causes confusion, right? If there are multiple versions that are floating out in the public, then people get confused about which one is the correct one. But thank you for sharing the feedback, and we will work on generating them as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you. My second question is, a community member also raised to me the concern that STAR Math is not predictive or may not be predictive of college and career readiness. Can you speak to that? Do we consider STAR Math to be predictive?
Sure. Couple of things. So what Dr. Khanna just mentioned is we are in the initial years of implementation. So this is actually the first year of starting implementation at the high school level. But I think there's a broader point about the utility of relying on STAR assessment. And slight caveat, this is going to take us a couple of steps, and I'll try to be as clear as possible. So college and career readiness indicator, there are multiple channels for earning that designation. It is somewhat opaque to the district, because we don't get the student level data back from the state about who qualified for what channels. So we kind of have to do some estimates on our end. But what we do know is that there are two separate channels through which students can earn the readiness designation through the SBAC. One is by performing very well on both the ELA and the math part. So if you get a 3 or above on both ELA and math, then you get the automatic designation that you're prepared for college readiness. The second channel that involves the SBAC is even for students who are designated as ready through the course completion route, which is a completion of the UC-CSU courses, the A through G requirements. Even when you complete those course requirements, the CCR indicator requires such that in addition to completing the courses, students need to meet yet another criterion, one of which is doing well on one of the SBAC contents. Okay, so in order to earn the CCR readiness designation, students have to do well on the SBAC. SAR has been proven to be very predictive of students' performance on the SBAC. So by us now building in a new interim goal that relies on students, 9th and 10th grader students' STAR math performance, it gives us a sense of students' preparations for and readiness for their performance on the SBAC math in their 11th grade year, also giving us a sense of the likelihood of them earning the college and career readiness designation. Was that clear? I know that, as I promised, it involved multiple steps.
Sorry, I appreciate that explanation. Like, it's helpful to know that STAR, or we consider STAR to be predictive of SBAC, which in turn is an indicator for college and career readiness. Okay, thank you for that. My next question is partially a question and partially raising a serious level of concern, and that's around the new goal, the new Grading for Equity initiative. So I had asked a number of questions about that to try to find out what SFUSD, what we perceive here as grading for equity means. And having read the responses and also having heard from some number of community members already, I am quite concerned. If I'm understanding this correctly, 100% of a student's grade under this initiative would be based on summative assessments. And what that summative assessment would be, whether that's a test or some other form, it really concerns me that we won't be preparing students properly when I would say in real life, we need to teach students a lot of skills and help them with a lot of skills, like things like turning things on time, doing their homework, participating. Those things are actually important skills to acquire, not just the specific content, although the content is also important. And so, actually, let me just see if I can find, because Mr. Kim, I saw you perhaps shaking your head, had something I was saying. So let me just take a quick look for what I had asked about this. Okay, so one of the things I had read here is that it's under goal 3, in response to my question, it says 100% of the grade based on summative assessments using a minimum 50% or 0 to 4 scale, which also, if I'm understanding this correctly, and perhaps I'm not, seems to indicate that you could do nothing on the summative assessment, like a child could sit in class and not fill it out and still get 50%. I can see that there's potential concerns about giving students zeros because of how much that could affect their grades, but the concept that 100% of the grade would be based on summative assessments and these other things about time, effort, participation, classwork, homework, whatever, would not count toward the grade seems like I'm very worried that that would be counterproductive, however well-intentioned, that this would actually be counterproductive, especially to the most disadvantaged students who I feel like kids really need this kind of preparation and reinforcement and practice. And so I wanted to raise my concerns about this upfront. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And so just to kind of build off of that and some of the responses that were in here, I think the main thing is that this year is a year of learning. And so there are some core tenets around grading for equity, but it is going to be up to those teachers to kind of learn from the practices in other districts, how that has impacted students, how that has impacted achievement. And there is not a prescribed formula that schools are going to take on. So participation in the initiative is completely voluntary. And so teachers are really excited about partaking in this. And so the summative assessment piece, I would say that it's too kind of broad of an answer. So what that really means is that a student understands that if they do their homework, that when their homework is then reviewed in class, that they're going to see that connection, that they can make a lot of mistakes on their homework, and the homework is practice leading up to them showing their learning on an assessment. And so my own child actually is in 9th grade in another district. And so I have actually seen how this has been implemented and how it has affected, in our case, in our family, his ability to focus on the learning and actually not on the grade. So grading for equity as a term, I think, is a misnomer because it's the end of the road, but the practices involved leading up to that are really about learning. So for example, on an assessment, being able to provide test corrections, retakes, all of that focus is on the partnership between the teacher and the student working together to then demonstrate their learning. And so a Socratic seminar, for example, where students are discussing and bringing evidence, that could be a graded assessment. It's participation. But the issue is that it's really clear for students so that if I'm showing up in class and I maybe have a headache that day and I'm disengaged in class that day, that all of a sudden there's not a high stakes, score that I'm given about my participation. And so it's really about the clarity piece around what are students being assessed on, how is that rubric being communicated in advance, and it's really about that constructing of it so that there's no surprises and students have multiple opportunities around that. And the scoring piece is really about kind of just a mathematical equation that if you end up getting a 0 and then you start adding, like at a certain point for high school students, it could be within the first month of school. If they do the math and see all of the upcoming assessments, we don't want them at the first month of school to say, oh, I'm going to fail that course or I'm going to get a D now. There's no point in trying. And so what that change in just percentages and scoring, it's really just a mathematical way that has been shown to not, reduce any opportunities to still succeed in the class. So that's kind of how the math works out when they show you in the professional development, how if you take a student who gets, let's say, 3 A's later on in the semester, but started off before they mastered the content or those skills with lower grades, percentages in the 30s or the 40s, how by the end of the course, they may have mastered the content, but it doesn't accurately reflect their learning because those prior scores brought them down so much. So it's really a shift around not being assignment based, but being mastery of content of the learning objectives based with that clarity and multiple opportunities to kind of demonstrate that. But there's not an expectation that all of these different tenets the first day of school are implemented. This is really about teachers looking at their own assessments, being reflective, collaborating across school sites and saying, let me see how you grade a test. Let me see how I do. How is this working across math classes across the district? And it's really that collaborative nature, not like a top-down initiative.
I am definitely all for teachers collaborating and working on things. This sounds idealistic to me, like not the collaboration part, but the description that's provided here in a way that doesn't match with actual human and student behavior in many ways. A lot of kids, if they look at this and say, well, I don't have to do anything until the assessment, will not do anything until the assessment. And in real life, it's important to prepare. It's important to learning as well. If students have the idea that they, because they're not being graded on anything else, can functionally not do anything, they're not going to reach the content mastery in any event, but they're also not going to have practice at acquiring other skills outside of the content. Like, I think I understand the theory that this will help kids focus on learning. I'm concerned that that will not work in practice. We've seen, like, from past things that we've done with math, with algebra, actually with Empower too, that we have good intentions, but they don't necessarily work out. And I'm concerned about this. You mentioned there's teacher choice, and I'm very glad that there's teacher choice. This isn't being required of everyone. But what about the, like, families and students may be very concerned. I can see families being very, very concerned about this method of doing things. How will they know how their students are doing? And I would say, again, I'm concerned that this will be most potentially problematic for students who are already the most disadvantaged. For instance, students who come from you know, backgrounds that are not there, where their parents are not particularly involved for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. I'll give you a moment
Okay, great.
to respond, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'd love to continue talking about this, and, you know, kind of share more of the research and kind of what led us here. The equity concerns that you bring up is, you know, those are actually driving principles for why we want to pursue this. So when you look at things like homework, for example, you know, there's a lot of equity gaps and opportunity gaps when we don't provide a safe space at school with tutoring and things like that. So a lot of these principles are actually, you know, originate from that access point and that partnership with the teacher. And to the assessment piece, I want us to broaden. When we say assessments, we're talking about, it could be a quiz every week. That's an assessment. So like I said, it could be a discussion in class with a rubric. So we're not talking about using STAR as an assessment or a semester final. We're talking about, in the same way, which is not much different, how teachers are already doing this work. I think the changes is really around us trying to make improvements from a continuous improvement model, because what we're currently doing is providing, you know, large variance, even in a school, of how grading is implemented, and a lot of confusion for students and parents around how to meet the expectation. So we're really looking at this as a learning experience to see if we change certain practices and work on this together, how will students react to it? You know, how will their experience in class, how will they stay engaged because they see that they have these multiple opportunities? And lastly, with the 7-period day, this is also a perfect opportunity where now there is actually built-in time for students where they can, if a school puts in place teacher office hours for a retake, for tutoring. So we were not really positioned before now structurally to implement something like this, because you bring up the structures, which are so important, of like, could this be a reality? But in looking at how these extra supports could be provided, we feel like it's an opportune time to provide that support to students.
Commissioner Weissman-Ward.
Thank you. Before I ask my question, I'm going to just say I respectfully disagree that a lot of students are going to just wait and do nothing until an assessment, whatever that be. I think that is a broad overstatement. I think it's actually not fair to a lot of our students. I will also say that I very much appreciate this method, having an 8th grader and seeing the homework really change and having to sort of figure out how to engage in different, sorry, I do not have an 8th grader, almost 8th grade. I was 7th grader. He's not in 8th grade yet. Jeez. 7th grader, and watching the challenges in coming into middle school. And shout out to Mr. Dang, 7th grade math teacher, who will give credit for all of the times that the students are attempting the homework, even if half of them are wrong. And then he says, go check these problems, and you do it again. And I appreciate the opportunity to do a retest. And that is where my kid is learning. So I think that I appreciate this very much. So my question is about interim goals, goal 2, and the change in interim goals 2.1. And the shift from analyzing 3rd grade to analyzing 6th grade, and would just to love to learn a little bit more about the decision. I realize that the ultimate goal is 8th grade math, but wondering why you all decided that an interim goal starting at grade 6 would be more indicative or more sort of predictive of what we're hoping for by the end of 8th grade, and where that decision came from.
I want to definitely make it clear that at every grade level, starting from kindergarten, we have the STAR math that we are giving 3 times a year. So it's not that we would stop monitoring that, so that we would continue to monitor. But how do we make the middle school initiative a math initiative and a concentration of math? That's the reason we entered it. But I really do want to stress again that all the earlier grades and the monitoring of math and the reporting of it in our reports will still exist. Okay, I'm gonna let the
Good evening. One piece that I will name is that in math in particular, we see a particular discrepancy in student performance in the transition from 5th grade to 6th grade. So there is a significant decline such that I believe it is less predictive to look at a 3rd grade when we're going forward to an 8th grade as opposed to tracking a 6th grader. So I think part of it is having a more predictive indicator as to whether or not students are on track with regards to grade 8 standards.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Commissioner Gupta?
Good evening. Hope y'all are doing well. It's wonderful to see sort of the full panel, the brain trust. So I want to recognize, and I appreciate the clarity around the prior timeline that you mentioned, Dr. Kim, in terms of in recognize the effort to co-create these. The fact that previously perhaps it was brought later with the full numbers, and then I'm sure you got complaints about not being involved to co-create those. So I want to recognize that effort to co-create this and discuss this. I agree with less is more, and so I would seek to keep I wanted to follow up on Commissioner Weissman Ward's goal 2 question, and that the answer makes sense. I'm curious, I mean, I know we track these across all grade levels, and if we were to, if less is more, we only choose 3, are these the 3 that we would want? And so I guess my question as we co-create these together is, if you were to look at this and map where you see that discrepancy start to grow, specifically when we look at, say, African-American student achievement in 8th grade math. And so as we track our students, where do those discrepancies start to emerge? And are these 3 that you mentioned here where you see those greatest, I don't know if you could say causal, but at least, that grade of predictive ability when you look at these 3?
So the way the interims are designed is that if you look at the 1.2 or 2.2 or 3.2, it'll always target the entire grade level because, we are trying to monitor how do all students do as compared to the end goal. And so that's why the 1.2, 2.2, and 3.2 will always be the entire grade level. The other 2 groups that are chosen is because of we're trying to do the targeted universalism, where we first see at 6th grade, the entering 6th grade, which group is the furthest from reaching the proficiency level that the goal has set. And that's the group that we want to focus our efforts on with regards to that targeted universalism. And the same thing, then we try to do the same thing for equity around the last goal. At that grade level, which group is now the furthest away? And that's again how we target that group as the focus point, right? So those are the 2 areas how we've chosen these goals. But I'm going to let the
It does make sense. I mean, I guess my and maybe this is my bias, so I'll name that. What I did appreciate about grade 3 was then it feels like, oh, here is something that then we have time to course correct, and we can use grades 4, 5, 6, 7 to be able to get to eventually where our goal would be. And so when I say, for example, look at 2.3 in the new one, where it's sort of the percentage of grade 8 Latinx students as proficient on STAR math will increase from 12.8% in March 2025 to XX% in March 2026. I'm sort of like, oh my gosh, we're already at grade 8. Like what, and I recognize this is sort of a long-term indicator, but again, maybe that's my bias as I look at these.
Please always ask us also for the earlier grades, because as I told you, we start the formative assessments all the way from kindergarten 3 times a year, every single year. So we will still continue to monitor the 3rd grade and not drop it. Thank you.
And I'll just add 2 things. When we think about these interim goals as related to the larger goals, the larger goal in theory is in October of 2027. So looking at 3rd graders in 2025 for an end goal of 2027 doesn't give us as much of an indicator, but we do want to look at those 3rd graders for the next time the goals roll around, but we hope those goals will be higher. And so the next thing to do is what is RPA, CNI, and LEAD all doing to support principals to better understand? How do I look at data regularly? How do I integrate that into ILT meeting, into leadership team meetings? How do I support my coach to look at it? Because looking at it here is one layer, but it's not actually helping us get better in the classroom, right? The teachers have to be able to digest that data and really say, all right, what is this STAR data telling me about the proficiency in my class, and what is it telling me about my instruction, and what do I need to do differently? And that requires like a set of structures inside the school building. And so hopefully we're presenting to you what we're seeing, and we're doing some back of the house stuff in order to prepare principals to lead that work, and assistant principals and coaches to lead that work at their sites, hopefully.
That makes sense. I just have a couple more questions. On goal 3, and I recognize goal 3 is challenging, and I appreciate the work that's gone into this. Similarly, I'm curious, what is the mapping of college and career readiness that makes sense for SFUSD? So one of the things I think a lot of people perhaps don't realize is that we have one of the highest A through G completions amongst all of California, which we should be lauded for, educators should be lauded for, you all should be lauded for. And so when you look at this, and perhaps also including non-academic indicators, such as absenteeism or FAFSA completion, how do you, maybe you could just walk us through, how do you determine, the methodology of which indicators to look at that really speak to the mapping of where we see people falling through the holes when it comes to college and career readiness specific to SFUSD?
What I really appreciate, and we're still in a learning phase, but about the college and career dashboard is there's finally like a recognition and a shift, like to be up with the times around what is college and career ready. So we're not just looking at, somebody could have really, amazing grades, but then on an interpersonal level, on an emotional intelligence level, have they ever prepared for an interview? Do they know how to do a resume? Do they know the options available to them? So the great thing about the indicator is that it incorporates so many different facets. And so we've had to engage in our own learning of, what does quality support look like for all of those different facets. We already have experience with shifting our district to having, almost all of our courses immediately are A through G. And so other districts that struggle with this, it's because students end up selecting courses that are not A through G. And so they just didn't know that that course was not that way, and they have a mismatch with counseling. And so we've made a shift that, you might find a course here or there that will correct when we see it, but all of our courses should be A through G. And so there's, kind of our tier 1 for all students is that they will have that access to the right courses to be ready for UC and CSU admission. So that piece, I feel like we're on the right track for. Then doing well in those classes, feeling supported in those classes, we have that variance, which has led to wanting to have more reflection around our communication to students, ensuring that we're teaching to the standards, ensuring that that students really feel that partnership with their teacher to achieve, and that it's not something that's decided based on kind of the skills that they walk in the door with the first month. So that kind of leads to the work around both the grading for equity piece, but then also how we monitor our on-track and off-track data. And so in 10th grade, really making sure that students are taking the right courses, and that if they have had any challenges in courses, that they know all of the opportunities for credit recovery, and other options available to them so that we don't reach 11th grade where then so many credits have accrued that they need to make up. So we make sure that they're on track. So I'd say making sure that you're taking the right courses is a key piece. Then all of the work that's been done around internships and our community partnerships, that has opened up doors for students that, have graduated from SFUSD and continue to stay in touch with those internship placements, whether it's to continue working for them or just that leads to a network and a connection that wasn't available to them before. So that's kind of that expansion piece, as well as our JROTC opportunities. And then all of our career and technical pathways also all have work-based learning and those opportunities to engage with industry partners. So I think, what's exciting of the times and where we are in San Francisco compared to other districts is we've really embraced these multiple measures, as well as our relationship and strong partnership with City College, so that when students engage in City College courses, they immediately can picture themselves as a successful college student. So if a student feels like, oh, I already took a college class, not only do they enter college with credits that saves them money and gets them a head start in credits for college, but it also is a mindset of, if I can achieve this as a 12th grader, as an 11th grader, I can see myself successfully down that path. So it's really everything, but at the key piece is that they have to, we want all students to have that foundation, which starts in our TK and preschool, so that everyone has those academic skills leading up to being able to be successful in all of these opportunities.
Thank you.
I would just also add that the end of what Davina said was where I was going to enter, which is that obviously college and career readiness doesn't start when they get to high school. We've been doing that all along. And our work in partnership with SFSD around exclusionary practices and shifting our exclusionary practices to go back to, I'll just harp on my sense of belonging for a second, that ensuring students have trusted adults, not just one trusted adult, but myriad trusted adults, that they see themselves in their classrooms, that they have relationships with other students, and that we're watching to see when we see indicators that students don't see themselves in school, where they don't feel safe in school, that we're taking measures to stop that, and that we have really high quality instruction happening. So all of our curriculum adoptions help to support that tier 1 instruction. And then all of our tier 2 and tier 3 helps to kind of say, oh, wait, if we don't do something now, by the time they get to college, we may be way off track, because by the time, college, 9th grade, by the time we get to 9th grade, if a student is off track, it's harder to get them back on track than if we're working all together. So there's been a lot of talk amongst ourselves around how do we do this every step of the way.
Yeah. And I will just, one last thing, I think what would be helpful, and I really appreciate the kind of the theory of change that's laid out in that really stems all the way from the beginning to the end. And so maybe it's just seeing it, and I don't need to see full reports, but just seeing where you see that play out in terms of whether it's at a site level or whether it's across, some of the data that just supports some of that in terms of, okay, here's the effect size specifically when it comes to SFUSD around this particular factor, and this is why we're measuring this. Just some of that background data that supports that theory of action, which is so well laid out, would be really helpful when we take a look at these and better understand that. So thank you again for all your guys' work.
Thank you. And just to acknowledge, I think a lot of that probably should be coming out in the progress reports that we will be receiving once we start our regular monitoring come fall. So lots of excitement around and anticipation around getting those reports and digging into those as part of our workshop meetings. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of second something Commissioner Gupta said earlier, and kind of actually was just commenting on around the linking of the data with the theory of action. And I think Assistant Superintendent Steiner, you said it well earlier too, when you said it doesn't, in some ways it doesn't matter. It matters, but it doesn't matter what happens here. What matters is what's happening on a daily basis in schools based on your work to change culture and practice in the district. And so I think I just wanted to sort of almost second that point, that the more that you all can also tell us why you picked data points that do that, right? So it's great. Again, I think it's great that we're focusing on African-American students and Latinx students. We know that they're, not being served as well as they ought to be in our district. And But then the question is sort of, well, why? What's our analysis? What, you know, what is it 6th grade? Is it 7th grade? Is it 8th grade? Maybe it's 3rd grade. Maybe if Black students were getting better math education in 3rd grade, they'd be, you know, remember anyway. So I think that's sort of, just to maybe repeat what he was saying, but the second is like, as we think about data points, like we want to hear also the why behind the data points. And so I would just say, like, as you go through this, don't feel constrained because you picked these data points. If in the fall, it's like, well, we've actually discovered this other thing. You know, we don't want you to be locked to these data points. What's I think important for us is that analysis and seeing that and making it more and more visible, because I think the more we can all make it visible, we can support your work across the district and saying, hey, this is why we picked this strategy, because we actually have evidence now that it's working, right? And it's working particularly for these students that have been marginalized in the past. So anyway, just thank you. And yeah, thanks for the continuing. And I can see that as we're developing this, I feel like I can definitely see how we're moving in the right direction, and just really want to appreciate that work.
Any other? Oh yeah, go for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and all answering all the questions so far. I have a couple, and it's back to sort of the first discussion we had on like the assessments and the teacher's choice element of that. Is there any sort of guidance? Because I know for us, it looks very broad and brief, which I understand for a presentation point of view, but is there any guidance to teachers on the varying types of assessments they can have, like whether if it's like a Socratic seminar or if it's quizzes every week? Is there some sort of guidance to the teachers in the room of how to best operate those sort of some assessments, just so it's more representative of the students learning over time and not like one test at the end or beginning of the year?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So one of the pieces, and I kind of mentioned this before, is moving from like an assignment-based assessment to a competency-based. And so what that could look like, just to make it like really clear, like an English class. So let's say you have an essay in an English class. Now the book that you are writing, you know, an analysis about may change, right? From the first month of school to the third month of school. But if you are working on a competency around, you know, citing evidence and supporting your thesis, that would be assessed multiple times with different assignments, right? And so it's not so much about, oh, I have to get, you know, do a good job on this assignment. That one essay may have 4 different competencies there, where you are, where in one essay, you may score really well on one competency, but have a lot of growth areas in others. So then you get to, you know, celebrate that aspect of how you did on that essay, but it's not just an overall A or an overall B, that you're really getting that feedback. Yes, there's still a grade attached to it because we're still using grades, but you would understand, you know, how that would all be laid out. And teachers right now, you know, at your school are making these decisions every day. A teacher without this new practice can decide on allowing retakes or not allowing retakes. They can decide now on how, if they provide a rubric or don't, you know, have a rubric. So really that work is going to be around that teacher collaboration and working with students collaboratively as well to say, okay, this is the rubric that we're using for this assessment. What questions do you have? How is it going? And we'll be able to monitor and see the rosters of all of the students that are participating in the students that in the classrooms where this is taking place, where that learning is taking place. So first semester, a teacher is still in a learning phase, so they may change nothing about anything. And you know, you would just know, oh, my teacher is participating in some professional development to grow in their practice around these principles and trying some things out this year. So then part of that process would be getting feedback from students and kind of working on that collaboratively. But they may choose to just implement, you know, one thing, which is retakes, and say, oh, since we have 7 periods, I'm going to do office hours on Fridays for corrections or retakes. So that will be communicated kind of, you know, as you go, depending on if a teacher is participating. So a school may have no teachers participating, or they may have 2 teachers participating, but we'll make sure that that's communicated to the students. But what isn't a change is that the teachers still have that discretion. So, you know, right now teachers have autonomy based on our contract to come up with their syllabus, how they're grading and doing all of that. So that will still remain. And so just like a teacher now gives you at the beginning of the school year a syllabus and explains the expectations, it's the exact same thing. The teacher would then put all of that information in their beginning of the year syllabus. At back to school night, parents would engage around that process. So, you know, teachers are already employing many of these principles informally, just based on, you know, what they feel is the best practice for their classroom.
Thank you for that. And my last question is to the percentages that have yet to be decided. For when those are eventually decided upon, whether that's, you know, very end of the summer or right in the beginning of the school year, is there going to be some sort of like reasoning or rationale released along with it to sort of give background on why these are the percentages that we determined and why we think that's a valid goal to have in the time frame that we have?
Yes, thank you very much. And after the meeting, I'd be happy to share the slide deck from this previous year that lays out that logic that we always share with the principals at Administrators Institute at the beginning of the summer, at the end of the summer, that we, I think, have shared with commissioners sometime earlier this year, that lays out the logic of how we develop them. General principle that we use is setting targets for district-wide goals as well as at the site level. And the design is such that if every site were to meet their goal, then the district would be able to meet its goal, right? Which makes sense. Yes, so we'd be happy to share repeating the standing process and the practice of sharing those with the commissioners, with the board members, and with the principal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this whole presentation. It definitely brought in a lot more insight, and I'm really excited to see where it takes you. This question is mainly for Davina. You brushed up on college and career readiness being more than just academics. It's also emotional intelligence, which is something I personally agree with. So with that said, how do you plan on documenting these skills, engaging who is prepared for more professional development skills like interviews, filing a resume, stuff like that, when there aren't tests to prove that?
Yeah. Thank you. So probably in your classes right now, you might be matched up with a partner to do a collaboration and do a slideshow based on your learning, right? And so the rubric, the expectations would involve how you work together as a team. It would involve like equity of airtime, perhaps, right? So all of that would be laid out. And so I think the point here is not that those types of skills are not being assessed, but that they are clearly communicated and they're not based on just how you show up in class one day, right? But that these different types of skills. So hopefully within a classroom context, it would be clear to students, like, what is the relevancy and, you know, how does this work? So for example, in a biology class, right, there could be an assignment where you role play being a genetic counselor and you take your learning and you have to meet with a, you know, pretend parent where maybe I would be the parent, you would be the genetic counselor, and you would demonstrate your learning on understanding the genetic concepts through that exchange, right? And the assessment in class would be on, did you clearly communicate to the parent? Were you able to explain the biology? Did you answer their questions? So it's really about that communication. And hopefully all of the, you know, kind of plethora of assignments and experiences that a teacher, no matter what the course is also including all of these different opportunities to, you know, do presentations and all of those really important life skills.
Thank you so much. I actually really appreciate that like form of experimental learning, as it could definitely help students get a better understanding of different roles. I have 2 more questions. I want to make it big because it's my last meeting. And I'm also very passionate about like educational policy, and I hope to work in curriculum development like all of you. So I hope to use this information for the future, the next generation. So bringing back grading for equity. Will this have an effect on grade inflation, which has been a huge issue across the district? And with grade inflation being in place, it does not prepare students for like future plans, whether they go to college or not. So with that said, will grading for equity have an effect on grade inflation across the district?
Yeah, so the purpose is really around more accurately assessing student learning. And so right now it's really, you know, and there'll continue to be that variance, but you could go into one classroom at your school and one teacher may grade, very heavily on one particular area, such as participation, without maybe some clear, guidelines around what that looks like. And also, opportunity for bias around cultural norms of participation, what that looks like, how that's experienced by the class, by that particular individual teacher. And so there's a lot of that variance. And so really the goal is for that clarity around mastering content. And so we hope that students' grades improve through them having those multiple opportunities to master the content. But it's really the opposite of grade inflation, because it's really about accurately assessing what students know and can demonstrate that they know versus kind of tomorrow there's a 50-point extra credit assignment based on something random. And next week there is an assessment that's going to be worth half of your grade, right? So it's really about that clarity and really focusing on the essential content versus a bunch of kind of other factors.
So in other words, it's just a better way to show that a student understands content
Correct.
in more than one manner. Like aside from just like assessments, like you could document this growth by like projects,
Correct.
small assignments, group projects, stuff like that.
Right.
Okay. So previously you mentioned that some teachers are gonna like elect to take part in grading for equity,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes.
So not everyone's gonna do it, but the teachers who choose to will. Right? How will this affect the profiles of students who choose to apply to college or any like jobs who require grades? As some students will be graded on a certain criteria and the others will not.
Yeah. So that's already the case in your classes, right? So every one of your teachers are setting their own syllabus. And so all of your teachers are using their own grading criteria. So that isn't going to change. That's course syllabus will communicate the expectations for the class and how you're assessed.
Yeah. Do you see like grading for equity like bridging any of the differences?
Can you say more?
Oh yeah. So you mentioned that every teacher has a different form of grading.
Mhm.
And that completely that has brought in some unfairness.
Yes.
So with that said, with grading for equity, you're trying to bring in some different ways that like you could grade students and get a sense of their learning.
Mhm.
Since right now everyone is graded on different criteria.
Yes.
Is there any way grading for equity could try to like make the grading styles more similar, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So I think that when teachers experiment with this and when they have success around this and when they collaborate with their colleagues and other students around it, they're going to want to put those shared practices in place. So we have strategically, worked with our school teams to think about which teachers are the best positioned to try this out. So teachers who have a real growth mindset, who have really strong relationships with students already, where they'll be able to be very like open about their learning and what they want to try out. And then how can they bring that back to their team? So for example, if you have one math teacher who's participating in this, they have a time at least once a month where they collaborate all the math teachers together during a meeting time, during collaboration time. So through the professional development and coaching that teacher is going to get for the whole school year, they will be bringing back that learning to the other math teachers. And they'll be saying, oh, look what I tried out. And what do you all think of this? And this is what I'm learning. So there will be a lot of opportunities for back and forth for teachers that are not participating. And so it really depends on how well it's working and if other teachers feel like that would be useful for them to learn more about and to get on board with. But it's going to kind of require first that teacher to try things out and learn, which teachers always do that, right? So if you teach, let's say 4 periods, right? First period, you may have done a lesson one way, right? And maybe it bombed, right? So already your second period class, you're going to shift hopefully, and you may do the lesson totally different for your second period class. So you already changed what you did from first period to second period. So what this growth and learning is really about being a reflective teacher so that you're constantly kind of getting that feedback and saying, oh, actually, maybe it wasn't just that this student didn't do well on this test, but maybe because 5 students didn't, maybe there was some gap in the way that I explained it to that particular table group when I went over there. And isn't that interesting that table group all, did not get that same question correct? So it's really about that inquiry and that learning back and forth, kind kind of how things are going to evolve. But, we don't know because it's really the teachers are going to need to try that out and get that feedback from their students.
Yeah, thank you so much. And last question.
Yes.
Did you happen to elect the teachers that will be taking part in this grading style? And was there an effort to get like diversity amongst the district? So at least one teacher participating in this grading style at every school?
Yeah. So the opportunity was presented to school instructional leadership teams. So every school has an instructional leadership team. And so in order for a school to participate, they needed to have a certain threshold of interested teachers so that it could have impact at their school. And so in some schools, that will include instructional leadership team teachers because they lead departments, right? And they have influence over those departments, and they already have a structure where they can share their learning. In other cases, teacher leaders who maybe are not in formal roles really wanted to participate. So we opened it up to them because the other teachers felt like they were already taking on certain other responsibilities, and we wanted to kind of grow that leadership in the school. So they were really teachers that were already committing to be open about their practice and what they're learning and kind of sharing that with their colleagues. And so we looked at that across content areas as well, around who, was stepping up, but also wanted to acknowledge, in terms of diversity too, thinking about new teachers, experienced teachers, roles, content areas, and not sort of a hierarchical just ILT teachers, but kind of opening that access to everyone.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Just a quick clarifying question. Grading for equity, is that similar to just mastery-based grading and standards-based grading?
Yes.
Okay, because if that is the case, cannot speak more highly of the transition towards mastery-based grading, and the focus and emphasis on really assessing what students know and learn, which is, I think, the whole premise behind our outcomes-focused governance work. And what I'm hearing is that there's kind of like a deep investment in just the learning trajectory towards getting to effective mastery-based and standards-based grading at the high school level. Is this also happening at the K-8 level? I mean, I would assume that because of the implementation of our new curricula, that it actually allows us to move closer to mastery and standards-based grading. Is that right?
So I can say where there is some similarity, we might look at an elementary, specifically standards-based report cards. So already at the K-5 level, the model for families receiving feedback on their students in a report card setting is meant to be standards-based. So there is some similarities, though not the exact design that's being described for the high school level.
And I would say that at the elementary level, the conversation is always like, what does the standards-based report card look like and what is it measuring? I think that there's still much variance amongst schools of like, well, at the beginning of the year, if they're doing well for that time of the year, but it's not the end of the year, do we give them the 3 then, or do we give them the 1 then because you're on the trajectory to the 3? I think that has oft been a conversation that across many schools is different, and we continue to try to align across schools. I would say at the middle school level, there is much interest in standards-based or grading for equity, and various schools are picking it up both because Davina and her team have offered it to the middle school and K-8 principals, but also because it was a practice at the K-8 schools before it like picked up and then it waned off. That's kind of thing how things happen. Actually, to student delegate Lamb's point, the idea like who participates and how does it change? I have this like distinct memory of a teacher when I was at the K-8 level who wasn't interested in participating, even though the whole middle school had picked it up, and was refusing to allow students to take tests over. Said, if you failed, you failed. But everyone else in the school, there's only like 7 teachers at the middle school level in the K-8s, were really picking it up. And so the students themselves started to put pressure on the teacher to say, everybody else is allowing us to show that what we've learned. What if we have learned it more? And over the course of the year that he participated, he shifted his own thinking. And so I do think that it is picking up, although it's not as formal of a structure.
Yeah, because I really do appreciate the conversation around what that is, because I think the significance of our shift towards mastery-based grading is actually quite big, and for a district our size to be able to move in that direction is pretty awesome. Understandably, I think there's a lot of questions around what that shift entails and how not just educators are aligned and normed on the grading of that. But I think there's a lot of perhaps questions from families around what it means for their report cards and what that means for progress reports and all that stuff. But the headline here, I don't want to get lost in the mix here of like, when a student masters that content and how they master it matters a little less than the fact that they mastered it, right? And as long as we're able to capture that learning and codify that in the form of a grade is fantastic, right? But they could master that the first day of class, and they could also master that the last day of class. The question is, did they learn it, right? And I think that's significant. That shift is just a different way of grading from probably how we have been held to grading in our schools growing up. So I want to appreciate that work because it is a significant shift, not just from a structural technical standpoint, but from like a mindset shift as well. And want to just recognize that for sure. Yes, go for it.
Yeah, actually, you sparked a really good question. So right now, the goal is to see if this grading style is effective, correct? Do you hope to expand it to all schools in like 10 years from now, or some schools, or the schools that need it? I would like to hear more.
I mean, this is the question of the hour for everything, right? Just like with curriculum implementation, we roll something out first with the, I don't know, what do you call it, the Coalition of the Willing, and people that are interested, because the Coalition of the Willing get other people excited. Very rarely has an initiative taken off because the superintendent or because a principal says, let's do it. It mostly happens because the people that are doing it in the classrooms get excited about this. So do we hope that more grading for equity and more standard-based grading takes hold? And do we think it'll change over time, right? Because this has been in effect for a long time, and we were studying this when I was a principal 10 years ago, and it's changed since then because new research has come out and said, actually, this might be the way to think about this. And so I think saying that we hope in 10 years everyone will be doing it might be too fast to say, because it might look differently in 10 years. And I hope that we continue to just keep growing and learning from it. But I do hope that more and more teachers and educators are interested in using a way of assessing their students that allow them to say, oh, this is what I've learned, not did I earn an A? Because I don't know about you, but when I went to school, I was like, I need a 4.0. And it didn't always matter what I was learning until much, much later, when I realized, oh, I could have actually been learning something and trying to take risks more, but I was concentrating on getting an A. So this also sets the stage for students to say, I want to take risks in my learning because it's about me showing how I'm progressing and learning over time. So to answer your question, yes, and maybe.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Fisher? Questions? Just kidding.
Always. A little commentaries peppered in there as well. But
Self-awareness is really important.
We expect our students to have a growth mindset, so I will reflect that as well. So I really, really appreciate this conversation, and Dr. Khanna, I appreciate the point 1 is our targeted universalism. Point 2 is the whole explaining that, and I think including that in what we share publicly would be very, very helpful as well. And in that vein, though, one of the things that I see missing from goal 3 and the interim goals is that targeted universalism. At least maybe breaking it down by early warning indicator as opposed to by race, ethnicity, or, and that's how we're doing it. So potentially that makes sense. But to me, I struggle to I struggle to see that we're removing the focus from African American, Latinx, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander students when they are very often the farthest from equity. And so that's one of my tensions with that, at least in the 3.3, removing that from 3.3. I also want to state, seeing the numbers in the updated goal 2.1 of only 5.8% of our African American students being proficient on our grade 6 March STAR math scores, that hits me in my gut, and that is wildly unacceptable.
So above and beyond this whole conversation we're having about interim goals, superintendent, I'd love to hear more from you about what we're doing to close that equity chasm, and what plans we have to address that. Um, whew. So, one of my other questions, I guess the question for the team, I appreciate that we have the public tableau, that has a lot of our data. That's really super helpful. Are there any plans to bring some of the interim goal data and include that in the tableau as well, so we can do more, the public can do more monitoring between sessions? I mean, speaking to some of the points that were already made, being able to share more of this data publicly, transparently, would be very helpful. And we, as a parent at Mission High School for a decade now, our previous principal, Perrette McCamey, was a social justice warrior and did a lot of work in the anti-racist teaching. And her big push was academic rigor, and in addressing the fact that so many of our students are not held to the same academic rigor and are allowed lower standards. And so I really appreciate this push towards grading for equity, because I think this is a huge part of that and a continuation of her work. So thank you for that. There were a question or two sprinkled in there, President Kim, so I think I'll stop there.
Can I just start first, and staff, you can continue? I agree. There's certain data that hurts your heart and hurts your soul, and you cannot just unsee them. And the math data for our African-American students, and quite frankly, our literacy data for our African-American students, our graduation data for our African-American students, are just data that should make you cry and should make you want to just pull your hair out, which is why it's really important for us to start day one with a teacher in every single classroom, so that we can have teachers ready to serve our students and teach our students on day one. Number two, we need to make sure that we provide the professional development and trainings to provide our teachers, to give our teachers the resources and tools that they need to be successful in the classroom. And then recently, the board just passed the resolution to allow us to now have a standard math curriculum that is going to be a huge improvement. So we are making those incremental steps to support our students. It will take a long time. It will take a lot of heavy lifting and effort from everyone, but I firmly believe that we're making the first initial steps. I'm going to hand it over to you all to answer any more. No.
Amazing last words. Anything else? Okay. I know it's time to dismiss our student delegates. Sad. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wow. I just,
Well, before you go, maybe we can thank you and dismiss staff. Really appreciate the presentation. Thank you so much for all your work. We look forward to digging into the progress monitoring meetings, and just lots of gratitude. Thank you. That being said, yes.
first and foremost, I just want to thank every single educator, parent, board member for just being there for students, for always advocating for our needs, and for always making an effort to hold yourselves accountable and point out any flaws in the system. So my appreciation goes to everyone who's been a part of my educational journey. And as a student who's been a part of the San Francisco Unified School District for the past 13 years, this leaving and just like exiting as a student delegate hits in so many ways. And I can't even articulate the emotions I've been going through for the past few weeks, but I just want to say I've been extremely grateful for every experience and every opportunity I've been given as a student delegate and just as a student in this district. And I will forever take on the skills I've learned in this seat and I will continue to advocate for students outside of this role. And I hope to connect with all of you in the future. I hope to send Judson an email later on to send to all of you. But I hope that I could add you all on LinkedIn so we could forever stay connected. And I would love to network with you all in the future and hopefully work together again, because it's not goodbye, but it's until next time. Thank you so much.
And can we do a quick group photo before you leave?
Come back and visit us.
Yes.
Wait, Slate?
What?
Yeah.
Wait, I thought we have you for another year.
But today's his last.
Oh.
I'm gonna
Oh,
focus
right.
more on the SAC stuff next year, so I won't be sitting here next year. I would also like to say thank you to all of you, especially a lot of the people that we work closely here in district office over the last year. Ritu, Davina, and Devin from Data. Absolutely tremendous in working with you all and getting a lot of the stuff that we got done accomplished for students of SFUSD. And I am a junior next year, so I will be seeing hopefully all of you a lot, either at that podium or if you guys come.
You can email board office at SFUSD.
Or come to SAC meetings. I'll actually probably just blow up all of your inboxes for SAC meetings. But thank you very much.
Awesome. As folks come back to their seats, item G, action items. We have one item, 255-27 SP1, employment contracts for district executive employees. Can I have a motion in a second, please?
Can we say some words to our student delegates before,
Yes, of course.
before they sneak out the door? Student delegates, it is always hard to follow you in your comments because you are always authentic in what you say and holding it down on behalf of all of our students here in the district. You call us out in ways we need to be called out, and keep that in whatever is next, whether it's rebuilding the SAC and everything you're going to do in that leadership role, Langston or Isabel, crushing it in Boston. Take these advocacy routes and shine. So thank you for everything that you've done for all of our students and the piece of you and your advocacy that you leave here that we'll continue with next year. Thank you both.
Okay. Back to item G1. 255-27 SP1, employment contract for district employees, executive employees. Can I have a motion in a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
I will call on the superintendent to introduce this item.
Thank you, President Kim. So as you all may know, annually, the board approves contracts for district executive employees. So before you are the proposed employment agreements for several key leadership positions in the district. The board will be or can consider each agreement one by one. However, we're going to read the summary of the financial terms now. I'm going to hand it over to our general counsel to read it.
Thank you, Superintendent. The board will consider approving an employment agreement with Christy Herrera, Assistant Superintendent of PK 5. This agreement will commence on July 1st, 2025 and run through June 30th, 2026. The salary placement for Christy Herrera will be salary grade 6, step 8 of the managerial salary table. I invite a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta,
Yes.
Commissioner Huling,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman Ward,
Yes.
President Kim.
Yes.
7 ayes.
Thank you. The board will now consider approving an employment agreement with Jennifer Steiner, Assistant Superintendent of Middle School and K through 8. This agreement will commence on July 1st, 2025 and run through June 30th, 2026. The salary placement for Jennifer Steiner will be salary grade 6, step 4 of the managerial salary table. I invite a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta,
Yes.
Commissioner Howling,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman Ward,
Yes.
and President Kim.
Yes.
7 ayes.
Thank you. The board will consider approving an employment agreement with Davina Goldwasser, Assistant Superintendent of High Schools and College Career Readiness. This agreement will commence on July 1st, 2025 and run through June 30th, 2026. The salary placement for Davina Goldwasser will be salary grade 6, step 5 of the managerial salary table. I invite a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta,
Yes.
Mr. Huling,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray, Commissioner Wiseman Ward,
Yes.
and President Kim.
Yes.
7 ayes.
So President Kim, may I ask a quick question about,
I believe questions are yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I had sent a question earlier, just wondering why there was a difference between one of the employment contracts and the others. And I may have missed something, but I don't think that I heard about it. So I just wanted to check in with you. For one of the contracts for Mr. No, I think his name is, there's not a provision where there is in the other contracts. And I just wanted to make sure that isn't an oversight. Is it intentional that the provision is different?
It was based on the terms that were negotiated with the individual. The individual is well aware.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the board will consider approving an employment agreement with Eddie No, Technology Service Officer. This agreement will commence on May 28, 2025 and run through December 31st, 2025. The salary placement for Eddie No will be salary grade 6, step 4 of the managerial salary table. I now invite a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta,
Yes.
Commissioner Huling,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray,
yes.
Commissioner Wiseman Ward,
Yes.
President Kim.
Yes.
7 ayes.
The board will consider approving an employment agreement with Amy Bear, Associate Superintendent of Human Resources. This agreement will commence on July 1st, 2025 and run through June 30th, 2026. The salary placement for Amy Bear will be salary grade 8, step 8 of the managerial salary table. I now invite a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta,
Yes.
Commissioner Huling,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman Ward,
Yes.
President Kim.
Yes.
7 ayes.
Thank you. We'll move to item H, consent calendar, and I will excuse myself and pass the mic to Vice President Huling.
Does the superintendent have any items to remove from the consent calendar?
There are none.
there a motion to move on the consent calendar?
So moved.
I will second. And can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta,
Yes.
Commissioner Huling,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman Ward,
Yes.
President Kim. That's 6 ayes.
I will retrieve our. Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Gotcha. Thank you. Um, Item I, information items. Linked here are the staff responses to commissioner questions regarding this agenda. And item J, adjournment. I adjourn this meeting at 9:15 p.m.